As you level in Skyrim, things tend to level with you, at least most things do. Draugrs will become more powerful as you level up, you will start to encounter different types of dragons as you level up, and you will even start noticing new enemies altogether as you level up. Same thing with items, the stronger the quality of an item is, the higher your level would have to be in order for that item to drop. For example, you would have to be level 48 before Daedric armor pieces will start dropping for you. The system was created so that new characters wouldn't find extremely high level armors and weapons accidentally or purposefully when they shouldn't. Since armors and weapons don't have level or stat requirements, a level 1 person could theoretically wear a Daedric set without any repercussions, which of course would be unbalanced as hell. So the system is designed so that low-level characters get low-level items, while high-level characters get high-level items. It also makes it so that difficulty stays even throughout your Skyrim experience. But now the question is, how far does the scaling go? If my character just keeps on leveling, then how far would I have to go before enemies stop leveling with me? Are there enemies that ever stop leveling with me? Does every enemy level with me? To answer these questions, we have to go enemy by enemy, NPC by NPC, which would take forever. So let's focus on the most popular and most interesting of these cases and talk about them. As far as non-unique leveled enemies, let's make a quick top 10 of the strongest you can find for each class of enemy. These are merely the ones that are the most interesting and the strongest of their class, but it's not an all-encompassing list of the strongest non-unique enemies. For example, half of the vampires in this game are actually stronger than the strongest bandit you can find. But making a list of 10 enemies, 3 of them being vampires, would be kinda silly. We will also talk about the dragons later. So yeah, anyways, here's the list that I came up with. The Bandit Chief, the strongest bandit that you will ever find, only reaching level 28. The High Seeker, level 42. The Werewolf Barker, level 42. The Draugr Death Overlord, level 45. The Dremora Balanas, level 46. The Archmages, all level 46. The Maskless Dragon Priests, all level 50. The Briarheart, level 51. The Falmer Warmongers, level 54. And on the position of number 1 strongest non-unique enemy in the game, the Nightmaster Vampire, boasting a ridiculous level 65. What makes them so powerful is the fact that they possess a lot of spells to deal with you. Chain Lightning, Chill Touch, Drain Life, Icy Storm, Icy Spear, Revenant, Thunderbolt, Invisibility, and Vampire Touch. It's just a lot to deal with, not even mentioning their extremely high HP. So now, those are the strongest non-uniques in the game. Those are all things that you would normally find in bulk. Things that would just randomly appear in dungeons and fight you. But I'm sure that you guys are more interested in the uniques, in the overpowered, in the strongest by far things that you can find in this game. So let's move to that. But before we start talking about specific enemies, let's first differentiate the enemies that level with you and the enemies that don't. What do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of enemies in Skyrim whose level never changes. They start at a certain level and they will always keep that level regardless of how powerful or weak you are. For example, giants will always be level 32. This is why it is almost impossible to fight them as soon as you start off the game. They're literally way ahead of you and will be for a while. But on the same note, if you are, say, level 50, then they will always be a piece of cake after that since they never grow up in levels like you do. Probably the biggest example of these are the Dragon Priests. Masked or not, the Dragon Priests will always be level 50, which is why they're always such a pain in the ass. They're almost always very powerful and hard to deal with for most players. The only exceptions to this rule are Acidal, Dukan, and Sacrisos, the Dragon Priests of Solstheim, which are level 60. Okay, so enough games. Who are the strongest in this game? As far as taking only levels into consideration, then the strongest NPC creature in this game is by far Arngeir. Yeah, believe it or not, this guy is level 150. Even before the expansions, when the max level that Dragonborn could obtain was level 81, this guy was boasting something close to double that amount. Generally though, it's hard to count him, and on that note, really any of the Greybeards, since they are of course not enemies and they are peaceful. They also count as essentials, so you technically cannot kill them anyways. Now that being said, yeah, Arngeir is level 150, Bori and Wolfgar are both level 100, and lastly the sad Einarth with a measly level 90 to his name. Now, the reason I consider Arngeir to be on the top is because his level 150 is a static level. It never changes, which puts him a level ahead of Miraak. You see, Miraak can also be level 150, but only if you are as well. He scales with your level. Whatever your level is, multiply that by 1.1 and that would be his level, to the max of 150 and to the minimum of 35. His maximum health being 1220, really only about 25% higher than the strongest non-unique vampires that you can find. Of course, you do have to defeat him multiple times since he regains his HP by consuming dragons, so it kinda makes up for his low HP. But it also goes to show how powerful some of these vampires can be. Alduin works similarly, but his maximum level is only 100, while his minimum level is 10. His extremely low minimum level is the reason why a player could finish the game by only doing the main quest, and barely leveling at all. His health, though, is extremely OP, and he gets passive NPC perks that reduce the damage that he takes, making him even more of a threat. Now, since we just happen to be talking about end bosses, let's do Harken. The guy can reach an embarrassing maximum of 60, which normally would be kind of impressive, at least for most creatures, but compared to the other end bosses, he really doesn't scale well at all. A player character that leaves the expansion's last bosses for last, after doing everything else there is to do in the game, would find him to be hilariously easy to defeat. It is even more hilarious when you realize that the Arc Curate Birther can actually reach a max level of 75. Even his minimum level of 15 is higher than Harken's minimum level of 10. Just embarrassing, man, just plain embarrassing. But now, outside of the main quest last bosses, if you wanted to go out there and experience the toughest of the toughest that Skyrim has to offer, honestly, there's just no other way to go than Karstag. Look, if you're OP as hell and your level is extremely high, then yeah, Miraak would be a challenge since he will always scale to you. But 99% of the time, your character will not be level 150. Let's be real here, guys. And yeah, I realize that I'm saying that to a chat that probably has an average Skyrim level of 1000, but I still believe that 99% of the time, you will not be running around that high of a level. It's just unlikely, and that's why Karstag is so hardcore. You see, his level is static. It never changes, and it happens to be the highest static level in the game outside of the Greybeards. It is 90. Yeah, this guy will literally be level 90 since the minute you set foot outside of Helgen. So what makes it so difficult is that you have to be that high in order to even have a chance against him. The game will not lower his level for you at all. He summons ice wraiths during the battle. He will have a blizzard surrounding him when you first encounter him, which will ragdoll you if you get too close. He has 100% resistance to disease, frost, and poison, as well as 75% resistance to shock. He cannot be ragdolled and is immune to all forms of paralysis, as well as Mehrunes Razor, Mora's Grasp, Whirlwind Cloak, and the instant kill effect of the Wabbajack. He also benefits from a fortified combat healing rate of 0.15%. and a fortified normal healing rate of 0.15%. When you combine these two numbers, his normal in-combat healing rate is 0.3% of his maximum health every second, which is about 12 points per second. Might not seem like much, but if you're kiting him while also trying to deal with the raids, it can substantially lower your overall net DPS. This is your champion, boys. Karstag takes the cake as the strongest enemy in the game by far. Pretty close with the Ebony Warrior though, which I'm sure you guys probably want me to talk about. The Ebony Warrior is innately easier to defeat than Karstag, simply because you are forced to already be level 80 by the time you fight him. And since he also happens to be level 80, it means that from the get-go, you're already either on the same level or ahead of him, which obviously makes the battle a lot easier. That being said though, if Karstag also had that requirement, it would still be stronger than the Ebony Warrior. Now, the Ebony Warrior has about half the HP that Karstag has, about 2k, but what makes him so deadly is the nice combination of enchantments that he has on his gear. He has 50% protection from every elemental spell, he does an extra 75% one-handed damage, he for some reason has the ability to breathe underwater, which I mean whatever, I guess, it's there I guess, but he also happens to be partially immune to falling damage, requiring a small trick for falling damage to actually work on him. He also has both Fus Roda and Disarm Shouts at his disposal. It should also be noted that one of the biggest reasons he is so hard to defeat is because he has a lot of hidden values added to his character. outside of the obvious. He has a lot of player talents with him that increase the damage he does and the damage he takes. Things like Bladesman perk and well-fitted perks. He literally has 36 perks that increase the value of his stats, making him a hell of a beast. Outside of Karstag and the Ebony Warrior, things go down a bit. Of course you have the highest level dragon that you can find, which are the legendary dragons who happen to be level 75. These guys have about 4k HP, which makes them very, very tanky. Interestingly enough, the Frost version of the legendary dragons are actually stronger than the Fire versions by about 200 HP, and they also get an extra 25 points of damage to their breath. Of course, Fire has that extra overtime effect that compensates for it, but that extra 200 health that the Frost dragons have is substantial. You have to be level 78 for these types of dragons to appear in your game, so by then they will probably not be a challenge to you, and they will only get easier as you level up, of course. That's as far as dragons go. Now, outside of these guys, the rest are not even worth mentioning, really. Most NPCs that you fight and monsters cap at about level 50, including most unique named dragons and Daedric NPCs like Shoggorath and Gwivine. Isgramor also, interestingly enough, happens to be level 50. Shout out to the Forge Master, who happens to cap at level 60 though. He gets an honorable mention. Now, the one important mention here though, since we're talking about hard battles in general, would have to go to our pals Voslarum and Naslarum. I consider them to be one of the hardest battles in the game simply because, well, two main reasons. So most creatures in the game, for the most part, you can choose to evade. Say, you're not fighting Karstag unless you really want to fight Karstag. Same with the Ebony Warrior, the guy is not randomly appearing and killing you, he will wait for you and attack when you wish. The dragons though, they appear randomly and screw your stuff up regardless of your desires to fight them. Naslarum and Voslarum scale up to level 62 and are very difficult to avoid since they surprise you in the game. But what makes them a challenge is that you end up fighting the two of them at the same time. So as long as you're not above level 62, which is likely, you'll be fighting two leveled dragons on your level by surprise. So I have considered them, because of these facts, one of some of the hardest encounters players usually have in Skyrim. But hey, since we're talking about leveled enemies, what about followers? Do they also work like enemies? Well, yeah, they do. Followers usually level with you, and for the most part will always be the same level that you are. Thing is, most followers do happen to have a cap, like monsters do. Housecarls tend to cap at level 50, like Lydia. Hirelings tend to cap at level 40, while apprentices at the college tend to cap at level 30. But hey, this wouldn't be a Rex video without me showing you some of the most OP as hell companions that you can get in this game. So here it goes. Ysargo, Selen, Durak, Ingyard, and Freya actually have no level cap. So you could theoretically be level 200 and these guys would also join you in the high level club. They obviously won't be quite as strong as you are with your perks and whatnot, but their increase in HP, stamina, and magicka is super useful and will in fact come in effect in battles. Now, outside of these monsters, the highest ones after them are the Dark Brotherhood Initiates who cap at level 100. But now, the question to end all questions. The question you were wondering before you even knew that you could wonder said question. Are there enemies in this game that scale with you infinitely? If you were level 300, could there be a creature in this game that would scale with you all the way to 300? Yes, my dear Padawan, there is but one. The mighty, the all-powerful, the incredible Magic Anomaly. Yep, these motherfuckers. These guys will scale to your level regardless of however high it is. Have you ever wondered why these guys are always so difficult to defeat? It's not like they hit hard, but man are they tough, literally taking forever to kill. Yeah, the level of these guys will always be your level times 1.75. So if your level is 100, their level will be 175. If your level is 200, then their level will be 350. It is insane! Just by being level 100, this guys already possess as much HP as Karstag. And you have to fight like 20 of these. Life sometimes is simply not fair. Hell our new overlords, the anomalies. So the question that we're asking ourselves today is, where the hell is the Dragonborn now? What is it doing at this precise moment? So we played through the game, we defeated Alduin, we became the listener of the Dark Brotherhood, we are the champions of the companions, we I guess collected the Eyes of the Falmer, and we did all that. We did Dawnguard, killed Harkin, the Dragonborn, we killed Mirak. Now where is the Dragonborn? What is it doing? If there was a game called Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia, what would the books say about the Dragonborn? What would the people say about the Dragonborn? Where the hell is he? It's interesting because Elder Scrolls never makes it obvious to us. In Morrowind, and I'm gonna start from Morrowind on because these are the more modern versions of the Elder Scrolls games. So probably more closely tied to the real design that these guys want to make for their games. But in Morrowind, the Nerevarine, which is the main character, he's part of a prophecy. His prophecy is to destroy the Tribunal. As part of Asura's prophecy, he needs to kill the Tribunal. And he does just that. He kills Daggoth Ur, he kills Almalexia, and Almalexia kills Sotasil. But he never gets to kill Bivec. We do know that Bivec eventually dies off or disappears through the events of the Oblivion Crisis. As it was happening in Oblivion. We don't really know how, we don't really know where or what happened, but he just disappears. And almost the same thing happens to the Nerevarine. We don't really know where he went or what happened while Morrowind was the last game. Later on in Oblivion, we get told that he indeed left Tamriel to go to Akavir in an expedition, and that's where he is right now. The thing is about the Nerevarine, and we will get to the Dragonborn in just a bit, but the thing about the Nerevarine is that he's actually immortal. There's this disease in Morrowind called the Corpses Disease, I believe it's called, and it was part of Daggoth Ur, and he's I guess he tried to poison Morrowind to punish the Tribunal and all of that stuff. But the disease itself, it creates protuberances of cancer in your body and eventually drives you insane. It pretty much makes you into a zombie, literally. Like, makes you kind of immortal, but kind of like a crazy Dark Souls zombie immortal kind of way. And one of the prophecy aspects of the Nerevarine prophecy was that the Nerevarine, the main character, was going to be a person who would be able to endure this disease, who would be able to survive it. And through the game, you discover that you do indeed survive it. You do not go crazy, and you do not suffer this cancerous protuberances, but instead you kind of evolve it in a way that you're actually immortal, and you become immune to diseases. You don't age, but you don't suffer the crazy aspect of it. So in theory, the Nerevarine is actually immortal. He is still living as far as the Elder Scrolls Skyrim lore is concerned. As far as the 4th era, the year 200 of the 4th era, he's still alive. We know that he is still in Akavir, but he's still alive, which is the main point that I wanted to drive home here. Now, the Oblivion character, the hero of Kvatch, this guy, obviously everyone believes that he became Shigoreth through the Shivering Isles expansion. He mantled is the word that we use here. He mantled Shigoreth and he became him, while the actual Shigoreth became Gigalag. Who knows where Gigalag is? The point is, we have a Shigoreth and a Gigalag, and Shigoreth now in Skyrim is the hero of Kvatch. Now, the interesting thing here is that there is a sequence of events in Oblivion, right? You have the main game of Oblivion, everything that happens in there, you do the whole thing with Manka Camarend, you go into paradise, then you fight Merum's Dagon thanks to the avatar of Akatosh, and you defeat him, and boom, end of the game, right? You finish the main quest. Then the Knights of the Nine happen, you do that, you collect a group of individuals, you become the Knights of the Nine, and you defeat Umariel. Then Shivering Isles happen, and it's all sequential, right? Like, they all came out in this particular order, and then it ends with Shireen Isles, where supposedly the hero becomes Shoggorath. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because there is a sequence of events, and it tends to be, from what we have gathered, is that at the end of the main quest and at the end of the expansion main quest, the story ends. There's an ending. There's always something that happens to the main character that takes him out so that he's kind of done exploring. There's an ending to his story, right? Now, in Skyrim, it is very tricky because, as I said before in the beginning, it's never obvious. We actually didn't know what happened to the Nerevarine until Oblivion, because in Oblivion it is when they tell us that he went into Akavir, but before then we had no idea, right? And it was until we have Elder Scrolls Skyrim where we actually figured out that Shoggorath was indeed the hero of Kvatch because of the new tips that, you know, you can kind of see during the quest with Shoggorath in Skyrim. But before then, it wasn't really that obvious, right? So in Skyrim, it is very difficult to tell because it is not obvious, and it'll probably gonna have to be until we get the next Elder Scrolls game for us to be sure about this. Now, before we even get to my theory, we need to talk about the side quests, because for us to really be able to tell what is true and what happened, we have to decide whether the side quests in the games are actually canon or not. Now, for those of you who do not know what canon is, and I'm sorry if I'm being patronizing here, but just so that we're all on the same page, canon means that something actually legitimately happened in the story. There's a lot of things that are not canon within the games of the Elder Scrolls. For example, the fact that a sword does 10 points of damage instead of 12, like, it's not canon, it's not true that a dwarven sword is better than a steel sword. That's just a game mechanic. It's just a way for the developers to have us appreciate the game and enjoy the game, but it's not true within the story of the game, right? That's what something being canon means. The hero of Kvatch never really closed 96 gates of Oblivion by himself. Like, that obviously didn't happen. It makes no sense. It's not logical, right? So let's start and analyze. Are the side quests for the Elder Scrolls games actually canon or not? That the hero of Kvatch really went into the Dark Brotherhood and became the listener while simultaneously becoming the champion of the Companions Guild, ingesting the Hist, and while at the same time collecting the Skeleton Key and becoming the Grey Fox. Like, did those things really happen? Is it logical for a character in Skyrim, for the Dragonborn, to be killing dragons in the morning, defeating Alduin, or trying his best to defeat Alduin, and then at 7 p.m. Selling his soul to Molag Bal, and at 9 p.m. later on down the next week selling his soul to Nocturnal to become a Nightingale forevermore? Like, does that make any sense to you? That you have this character that is literally selling his soul to 5, 6, 8 different Daedras, doing their quests while also becoming the leader of the Companions Guilds? It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. There is a big chance that none of this is actually canon, that none of this can actually, or did actually happen. And the way that I like to see Skyrim is kind of a big what if. Is the game of the what ifs. It's like a make your own story. So you start Skyrim and you say, okay, there's the main quest in front of me. This is what actually happened in the game. I talked to Delphine, I went to the Greybeards, I did the main quest, and I killed Alduin and all that stuff, right? But what if the Dragonborn wasn't good? What if he didn't care about saving the world? What if he was just evil? What if he just wanted to kill people? Then he joins the Dark Brotherhood. Well, this is what happens. He joins the Dark Brotherhood. He, the Dark Brotherhood gets burned. He opens up his new sanctuary in Dawnstar, and he collects quests from the Night Mother, and he becomes the listener from then on. Sure, but okay, maybe he wasn't evil. Maybe he just wanted to steal shit. Maybe he just wanted to be rich. Well, then he becomes a Nightingale, right? Like, to me, and this is my opinion, my interpretation of the game, to me, all the side quests in the game, including the Civil War, is really just a big what if. This is what would have happened if the Dragonborn would have stopped doing what he was doing, what he was meant to do, and instead did other stuff. And then you get this representation of what if, what would have happened. For example, and this is one of the most popular ones, the Civil War. Well, who won? I mean, it is chosen by the Dragonborn, literally, who wins the Civil War. Whether the Stormcloaks defeat the Empire and become independent, or whether the Empire crushes the rebellion and maintains Skyrim within the Empire. What actually happens? Well, in the main story, if you just do the main story in Season Unending, you actually make a peace treaty between the two, pretty much separating the kingdom in half. It is more likely that that's actually the canon thing. That's the main quest. That is probably what happened. Whether the peace was broken after Alduin was defeated, after Miraak was defeated, well, we don't know. And it's going to be up to the developers probably to finish that story, and when the new Elder Scrolls comes out, I guess we will see what happened through the books. But look, chances are that's the way it works. And we don't actually get to choose that, which is the important thing now. This is my own opinion. I honestly, personally don't think any of the side quests are canon, including Morrowind, including Oblivion. And for the most part, it seems like a very reasonable option. I mean, when you think about most of the quests that happen in the game, a lot of them are very inconsequential. You know, if the Sanctuary gets burnt in Falkreath, the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary gets burnt, and then a new one gets started in Dawnstar, well, it doesn't have to be the Dragonborn that does that. It could just be anybody that did it. Maybe there was just a new hero, another listener that did it, not necessarily the Dragonborn. It's perfectly reasonable. It doesn't have to be the Dragonborn. Let's go back to Oblivion, right? It could have been anybody that became the champion of the Fighters Guild. That's perfectly fine. Now, the problem here, and this is the biggest wrench in my plans, is that some side quests are actually so massive that choosing to simply not make them canon is very, very difficult. I mean, especially in Oblivion, because, and this is a lesser example, but there's a quest, the Thieves Guild quest line in Oblivion has you steal an Elder Scroll. That's a big deal. I mean, could anybody steal the Elder Scroll? I mean, we know that the Hero of Kavash is a mighty warrior in all aspects of life, so he could probably do it if he wanted to, and he did in this what-if scenario, but could anyone have done that outside of the Hero of Kavash? We don't know. It's such an impressive feat, right? Now, that's one example, but I think the most hardcore example is Manimarco. Okay, so in the Mages Guild in Oblivion, you actually get to kill Manimarco. He's dead now. Period. Boom, dead now. Manimarco is probably one of the biggest lore characters in the whole game. I mean, that guy, by the time you kill him in Oblivion, he's 1,000 years old. I think he's like 1,100 and something years old. That's insane. Like, he's literally one of the main characters in Elder Scrolls Online. He's one of the main characters in Daggerfall, the game. And of course, he does participate a little bit in a lot of stories outside of the games, and then in Oblivion as well. He's a big dude. That's a very important character, and he just gets killed in a side quest for the Mages Guild. Like, that's it. Of course, you're an Archmage, and then you kill him, but, like, that's a big deal. I don't think anybody could have just done that. Like, no Archmage can just be like, alright, I'll just kill Manimarco. Like, it doesn't happen. So, that's the biggest wrench. I mean, is that canon? Did the Hero of Kavash really defeat Manimarco? While holding the Skeleton Key? While holding the Asura Star? While also being the champion of the Fighters Guild? While also being the champion of the arena? Like, is that a thing? Is it possible this guy literally did everything? I don't know. And that's the biggest problem. I don't think none of it is canon. I think the way the games probably go about doing that sort of thing is just, it was just an Archmage that did it, not necessarily the Hero of Kavash, but alas, I don't know. I want to leave it up to you guys as far as that is concerned. I really, really want your comments on this. I want to hear your opinions. Is there an example of one of the games making this canon? Like, is there an excerpt from a conversation or something where, say, I don't know, Nocturnal goes like, oh, you're the second person that is wielding the skeleton key in like 200 years or something, like the last hero that defeated Miriam Zagan. Like, I need some kind of confirmation that a side quest actually became canon by the main character in that game. If you guys can find that, that'll be amazing. Let's have some conversations here in chat, because I'm really curious. But that being said, going under the impression, pretending that the side quests are not canon, where is the Dragonborn now? What did he do? Well, if we follow the timeline, first he kills Alduin in the main game, in the main quest. Then Dungar appears. He, kills, I think it's Archmage Brithel. I don't remember the name of the guy, the snow elf in the Vale. He kills them. He kills Harkin. Then Dragonborn appears. He goes to Solstheim and he kills Mirak. Right? Boom. End of the game. That's literally the last thing that it is given to us. And as far as the main stories are concerned, that's the end. He kills Mirak. He goes back to Solstheim. He gets a conversation with Freya, and boom. That's it. End of the game. The end of Skyrim. If Skyrim had a storybook, that would be the end. He goes back to Solstheim. He talks to Freya. Freya says a couple of things, and it's over. Now, let's talk about this, because I have a theory as to where the Dragonborn is now, and it's obviously extremely reliant on this literally the last 4 lines of the game, as far as the main story is concerned. So, for everyone to understand where we're at here, Mirak was imprisoned by Hermaeus Mora. You see, Mirak, he betrayed the dragons back in the I think it was the Merithic era by then? Must have been the first era, I don't remember. Point is, he betrayed the dragons, and then the dragons lashed out against Mirak. He defeated all the dragons that he fought, and I believe it was about 21 or 23. It was a lot of dragons that he killed, just right up then and there. Then a dragon priest, what I believe was Valok, remember the name of the priest, but he defeated Mirak. Now, before Mirak could be killed by this dragon priest, he was saved by Hermaeus Mora, and since then he's been imprisoned in the realm of Apocrypha, which is the realm of Oblivion for Hermaeus Mora. Now, Mirak has been trying to escape since then, but he's not able to. He is, for all terms and purposes, imprisoned there by Hermaeus Mora. For whatever reason, Hermaeus Mora, he wants information. He wants every secret in the world, and to him, the concept of a Dovahkiin, of a Dragonborn, is extremely fascinating to him, because there's a lot of secrets tied up to an individual who, has the soul of a dragon in it, and is indeed blessed by the gods, right? There's a lot to that, and not just that, but it is a character that can, for all terms and purposes, walk through the earth. And if you have a servant that is extremely powerful, that serves you, it actually gives you a lot of power in the world. It really does. So, there's a reason for him to want to have Mirak on his side, but Mirak didn't want that. Mirak wanted to escape, but he couldn't. He thought that if he were to defeat the real last Dragonborn, that he would get so many dragon souls and so much power that he would then be strong enough to maybe defeat Hermaeus Mora, or maybe just escape the realm and be free once more. Now, the interesting thing is that when you kill Mirak, when you confront him and kill him, Hermaeus Mora impales Mirak, kills him, and says, "Did you think you could escape me, Mirak? You can hide nothing from me here, no matter. I have found a new Dragonborn to serve me." Then Mirak says, "May he be rewarded for his service, as I am." So, from the get-go, it almost alludes as if the Dragonborn has already agreed on serving Hermaeus Mora. Now, do note that at this point, you are in the realm of Apocrypha. You are in the literal embodiment of Hermaeus Mora. He, if he wanted to, could take control of you, could kill you, could imprison you. Like, he controls this domain. It is his will to manipulate it. This is where he is at his strongest. And there's, as far as I know, there's never been a point where a person could defeat a Daedric god in his realm. That's just crazy, right? Then Hermaeus Mora says, and this is the very interesting part, Mirak harbored fantasies of rebellion against me. Learn from his example. serve me faithfully, and you will continue to be richly rewarded. Now, so you have, picture this scenario. Miraak decides to betray Hermaeus Mora. Hermaeus Mora kills Miraak. And then Hermaeus Mora says, learn from his example. Isn't that interesting? He's literally saying, if you don't serve me, I will kill you. And believe it or, I mean, it's not hard to believe that he could do that very, very easily in his realm. He controls everything that happens. And he says, learn from his example. His example being, he betrayed him, he was killed. Boom, that easy. Serve me faithfully, and you will continue to be richly rewarded. Now, what happens next is even more interesting because he's let go. The Dragonborn is literally able to leave the realm of Apocrypha. Just this monolith appears in the middle of the tower, and then boom, he touches it, boom, he leaves. Just like that. Just like that, he leaves, right? And then when he goes back to Solstheim, Freya talks to him and says, Hermaeus Mora forced you to serve him in order to defeat Miraak. Do not let him lure you further down that path. The Allmaker made you Dragonborn for a higher purpose. Do not forget that. Do not forget that. Walk with the Allmaker, Skull friend. And it's very interesting because they could have just left it there. They could have just left it as you left Solstheim, and that was it. But they decided to press the matter a little further to kind of make you doubt whether the Dragonborn was truly free or not. Because, see, just by leaving Apocrypha, it's like you get this impression that, oh, well, we're obviously free. Like, we can do whatever we want to. There's no... Since nothing happened, you're almost expected to believe that that was it. That's the end. But the game developers give you this last bit of warning, almost giving you the question, well, is the Dragonborn gonna succumb to Hermaeus Mora? Or is he going to surpass it? So before, that question didn't exist. Of course we were gonna surpass it, there's no question about it. But then she gives us the question, almost forcing us to wonder ourselves, well, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna be able to do it, or are we not going to do it? And then the game ends. So we're posed this question, well, is the Dragonborn going to be the servant of Hermaeus Mora? Is he going to be stuck under the influence of Hermaeus Mora, or is he going to be able to prevail, and that's the end of it? The interesting thing, again, is that Hermaeus Mora just let us go. He could have just kept us. There was no way for us to return, but he kept us. He literally just allowed us to leave the realm. Which makes me believe that it is very likely that maybe we accepted his offer. Maybe we indeed became his servant, because otherwise he wouldn't have let us go. Maybe we are already imprisoned to his will. Makes sense. Maybe we'll play Elder Scrolls 6 and at some point we'll enter the realm of Apocrypha, or maybe we'll just talk to Hermaeus Mora like we usually do in most games, most Elder Scrolls games, and they will give us a hint that the Dragonborn is still